Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
And we are live. So welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So each week, my guests will discuss certain topics relating to either mental, physical or spiritual perspective or some kind of combination of all three. So my name's Karen Roberts. I'm your host. I am a holistic transformation coach. So basically, I focus on helping people find their mojo. If you've ever lost your mojo, that might be relating to business, it might be relating to fitness, to health, whatever. I'm going to get you back on track. So I run a 10-day challenge. If you want to get in touch, then it's KarenRobertsCoaching.com. So today's guest, Miriam, she's going to be more on the mental and maybe the physical perspectives. But Miriam, if you'd like to share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story, please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. My name is Miriam Baldwin. I live in the Netherlands. I was born in South America, Suriname, South America. But I've been living in the Netherlands for more than 30 years now. Today, I'm a happy, strong, confident woman. But I have to tell you, Karen, it wasn't always like this. There was a time when I was the caregiver, the driver, the cleaner, the cook, and working full-time. I met my husband in 1998, so more than 20 years ago. He was a diabetic, and we were exploring the world, doing the things we loved, even though he was a diabetic. And we weren't even dating for not even a year, and he started suffering from kidney failure. So I went to a doctor's appointment with him, and the doctor told him, Martin, his name is Martin, your kidneys are functioning for only 17%. And I was like, what does that mean? 17%, like 1/7, what does that mean? So I didn't know what to expect. So I became a caregiver from, I woke up that morning, and in the evening, I was a caregiver at the age of 29. So the next 4 years were hospital in, hospital out. He was on peritoneal dialysis, and then he had to switch to hemodialysis. And finally, after 4 years, he got a transplant surgery, a kidney pancreas transplant surgery. Wow. But in those 4 years, Karen, I wasn't taking good care of myself. And after his first surgery, because he needed 2 surgeries, I remember we had a conversation with a social worker, and she asked me the simple question, Miriam, how are you doing? And that's when I broke. I cried and sobbed for 15 minutes because of the heaviness that was on my shoulders. And I was mad at myself, because I didn't want others to see me like that. So when I got home that night, Martin was still recovering in the hospital. I looked in the mirror and I asked myself, Miriam, what are you going to do for you? What if something bad happens to you? You are not in a good shape, not mentally, not physically. What are you going to do for yourself? I knew the answer, Karen, but I couldn't get those words out of my mouth. And then I decided that I needed to do something for me, for my vessel, for my body. And I left him while he was recovering in the hospital. And I went to my home country for 1 week. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to take care of my vessel. But I decided to start somewhere. I needed to start where I was in my journey. And I invested in myself. I discovered techniques and tools that helped me fill my cup. I started with journaling. I started with meditation. I started with breathing exercising. sizes, sorry. And that's how I moved out of Burnout City.
Wow. That seems to be an incredibly common theme, because especially if you're the caregiver to someone that obviously they are suffering, they're going to get people are going to be worrying about them. So for somebody to actually come to you
Yeah.
and ask you for the first time, how are you doing? And you said something very interesting about the cup. You can't give from an empty cup.
No.
So isn't it interesting that, and from what you've shared, it sounds like you were saying that you almost felt guilty about airing how you feel, because there is a conflict, isn't there, going on
Yeah.
of what the perception of how we should be feeling.
Exactly. And I was so afraid to ask for help because I was constantly thinking, what might others think of me? Maybe they will think that I'm weak, or that it's a sign of weakness, or that I can't take care of him. But none of this was true.
No.
None of this was true. And, I invested in myself. I discovered techniques and tools that helped me, that brought me peace and ease. And I'm happy I did, because in 2012, years later, while I was at the office, Martin called me, "Can you call your brother?" And I said, "I'm at the office. Why should I call my brother?" And he said, "Please, please call him. I'm driving to him right now." And when I called my brother and I heard him talking, I hung up within 5 seconds and called the paramedics. He was having a stroke while I was talking to him
Oh,
on the phone.
wow.
He was partially paralyzed. He couldn't walk. He couldn't talk. We celebrated his 47th birthday in the ICU with him.
Wow.
And Karen, I went to the hospital every day to shower my brother, a grown man whom I didn't see naked. We are related. There was embarrassment, there was awkwardness, there were so many emotional feelings. Imagine that you have to shower your brother. See him naked. He can't talk. He can't express himself. He can't say what he is feeling. So when I asked him, "Do you mind if I shower you?" Because I know for 80%, I'm sure that it will help you recover sooner. It will be good for you both mentally and physically. And he mumbled something, and then he shied away. But he nodded. He said, "Okay, okay." And I went to the hospital every single day. But because I had taught myself those techniques back then, I could prevent another burnout.
Right. So there you go. What you're saying is and obviously nobody's prepared for this kind of thing, is it? It's not something that we're prepared for in life, to be a caregiver. So when you do it the first time, you're just on autopilot, and just doing the best you can. And I can quite see how easy, without the tools that you're talking about, that somebody could go through burnout, and from a mental, a physical, and a spiritual perspective. So
Absolutely.
what you're saying is that because then you learned the tools, that when it was now for your brother, you're still doing the same thing, but you didn't suffer as
Yeah,
much as you did before. Is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm saying. And I used to think that a caregiver is someone taking care of a parent, like my mom used to take care of her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And not when you're 29 that you have to take care of your boyfriend or a sibling. But I always say this: there are four kinds of people in the world: people who were a caregiver, who are a caregiver now, who will be a caregiver someday, and who will need a caregiver someday.
Mm.
And I always tell fellow caregivers, be careful, take care of yourself. Otherwise, a caregiver will need a caregiver.
Ah, yes, I can see how that is, and especially because I mean, a lot of people, even if they go into the care industry, I can imagine that's very, very different to being a caregiver to a partner, a sibling, because it's the emotional attachment to it. So mentally, it must be a completely different game. If you're going into a profession as a caregiver, you will, again, I suppose the same thing, you have to learn certain tools to be able to switch off, but at least if you're not emotionally attached to the person and it's a job, I can see that. I mean, and I'm not, listeners, I'm not, belittling it in any way. All I'm saying is
Yeah.
it must be easier once you've learned the tools to be able to walk away and switch off.
Exactly. It's totally different.
It's a different ball game. Whereas for you, when it's somebody that you're emotionally attached to, there is no switch off button. When it is your family member, when it is your partner, there is, where's the switch off? So I can understand how, I'm sure the caregivers get training. I'm sure caregivers get training on how to deal with stuff. But when you're thrown in that wasn't the plan, right? To be a caregiver, it was something that happened. So you've just had to deal with it. Then that's when you do need the tools to be able to deal with that.
Absolutely. You're doing the best you can with the knowledge you have.
Isn't that what we're all doing in life, Miriam? We're all doing the best we can on every subject with the information that we have at the time. Sometimes we need a bit more help though, right? So how did you figure out, I mean, when you say that you got to a moment and you went and took yourself away and thought, what do you think was that initial, how did you come to that conclusion that you need some self-care?
Well, before I could do self-care, I had to change my mindset. How to stop feeling guilty, how to stop being a people pleaser, how to enjoy the moment when I take care of myself, how to set boundaries and say no to others and say yes to myself. So I had to change my mindset, and it didn't happen overnight. It took me quite some time to discover how to be able to take care of myself, how to see possibilities. So let me give you an example. Seeing possibilities. For me, it was difficult to see what's possible for us within our situation, especially when he was on dialysis. I thought, as addicted travelers, I can't travel anymore because he's on dialysis.
Mm.
But then I thought, no, there must be a way. What is possible for us? And I started asking the medical professionals for help. Do you know what I can do? What is allowed? What is not allowed? How can we, for instance, go to Spain? And that's how I started finding and seeing possibilities. And that goes for everything. For instance, I even asked my neighbors, can you drive me to the hospital so I can just sit and relax in the car? But before I could ask for help, I needed to tell myself why I needed to ask for help. And I visualized the moment, how I would feel if I got a yes. So it was all in my mind. I had to change my mindset and tell myself, Miriam, you can't be a people pleaser because you have too much on your plate.
Right.
Your plate is too full.
Oh.
And I started with meditation, 5 minutes per day. It was difficult because there were so many things going on in my mind. So that wasn't easy for me to start with meditation. But I started with 5 minutes. I started journaling, writing down. If I had a difficult conversation that day, I wrote a letter to that person. And it
Great.
really helped me. I still journal every morning, 3 to 5 minutes, whatever comes to my mind. And that's how I started, Karen, with those 3 to 5 minute things. And when I discovered that it helped me, that it brought me peace, I wanted more. Those five
Ah,
minutes became 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes became 15 minutes. So there are a few things that I do daily: journaling, meditation, breathing exercises.
ah, fantastic tools to use. And you're right. It's for a lot of people, even the idea of meditations can seem a bit scary, because if they're all up here in their chitter chatter up here in the conscious mind, for them to actually quiet and try and empty the mind, clear the mind, that can be in itself actually quite stressful.
Yeah.
And so for some people, actually doing that kind of meditation may not. So what you've advised there is perfect. Just starting with 5 minutes. It doesn't
Only
have to be a 30-minute, an hour of meditation. A lot of people just wouldn't be able to do that because of the habitual patterns of their mind going
yeah.
previously. So starting with 5 minutes is, I think that's absolutely essential, because
It is. It is.
it'll
It
take a while.
yeah, or take a walk, whatever brings you peace. Meditation might work for, or it's not might, it works for me, but it might not work for you. So if you say, okay, I love listening to music, put on your favorite music and dance and sing whatever is good for you. You decide what's good for you, and that's called self-love. That's something I had to learn as well, how to love myself.
And I would have thought for a lot of people in your position is, you've mentioned the word earlier about the guilt, because when you are a caregiver, you probably feel that you've got to be doing this and you've got to be doing that, and so the guilt that people can feel in the beginning, as though, I shouldn't be worrying about me because I should be worrying about them. And that, I think, can stop a lot of people in the beginning from doing to actually take time out and go for a walk in nature, which,
Yeah.
would definitely be maybe the step one, even before the meditation. Just 5 minutes, peace by yourself
Yeah.
in nature. Have a
Yeah.
walk. Just a moment of nothing.
Yeah, I sometimes ask fellow caregivers, why do you have a problem with receiving,
Ah,
not with giving? Because that's what we do, we give. So you are allowed, you have the permission, give yourself the permission to receive as well.
love that. I think that is, you just, in fact, that was something I've just very recently posted. That's massive. That's massive. I know so many people who are just so overly generous, and not even in the care, just in life in general, but they're terrible at actually receiving. And yes, you're right, that even that means there's a blockage somewhere, because it's got to work both ways. Because I mean, I know we're talking more on the mental and the physical, even the spiritual perspective. You're giving all the time. You're giving your energy away. Of course you're going to burn out. You've got to allow to be able to receive, and that can be done in so many different ways. And it doesn't have to be, if you don't have time, it doesn't have to be 2 hours out of your day. Like you say, 5 minutes.
Only 5 minutes. And one more thing I want to say is that when I discovered that I had peace and ease, I transferred that energy to Martin and my brother. And that's something many of us forget, that you transfer the energy. to the other person, to others.
Of course, if you're stressed, they're going to pick up on that, and then they might feel guilty because, oh, look, she's stressed now because she's looking after me. And so the whole thing is, there's no win-win, is there, anywhere? Everybody's losing. You're losing. The person you're giving the care to is losing. So actually, that is why it is so essential to. It's got to be a two-way street, right?
Yeah, but once again, it didn't happen overnight. It took me quite some time, and communication is important as well. So today I can tell my loved ones no. If I have scheduled a self-care moment for Miriam, the door is closed with a sign on do not disturb. Because I need to take care of myself. But I expect them to do the same. If I ask them, hey, can you help me with this or that? And they have scheduled that time for themselves, they should say no. So
it's okay to say no.
Yeah, it's okay to say no. It's okay to take care of yourself, because we caregivers, we make sure that our loved ones are okay, that they are showered, that they had their meal, that they are comfortable. But we need to be comfortable as well.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I can't make sure that you are comfortable.
Absolutely. I mean, we're told it in different areas of life. You're told it when you get on a plane, right? You're told it, if something happens, the oxygen mask, you've got to put it on yourself before you can help your child or whatever. It is the same philosophy. You cannot, going back to the cup method, you can't give from an empty cup. So it's got to be, and I think, do you think that it's because we've somehow been almost conditioned to believe that taking time out for yourself is a selfish thing? Do you think that's part of it? It's that this mindset issue of we've been brought up to believe, of being conditioned to believe that in some way there's a negative side to it, which is crazy, right?
I do think so. And I also think that it has to do with our status. Like, you should be perfect. You should do this, or you should do that. You should go to the university. And we keep comparing our lives to other people's lives. And the idea of what others might think.
Massive.
So that's terrible. That was a hard part for me to work on. What might others think of me?
Yeah.
And I discovered that family caregivers, they don't get help at all.
No.
I've spoken to so many people over in many countries, and all of them say no, we don't get much help.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why, there needs to be more awareness for family caregivers.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, going back to saying about, people who go into the caregiving world as a profession, not that I'm presuming, or I'm at least hoping that they do get some kind of training in that. But yeah, you're right. It's almost like there should be something that's in place for people that suddenly find themselves in a caregiving role within a family unit, because yes, it's not something that in general people are prepared for, because it's not something that we expect. No. And again, it's like you say, why do we even worry ourselves, waste time, waste energy worrying about what other people think? Because quite often they're not.
That's what I discovered.
They're actually not. They're, seriously, they're actually not. They're not worrying. But it is interesting, isn't it, that can have such a hold over some people.
Yes, it does.
And where do you think all that comes from?
what people think. Um, Once again, I think it's society.
Yeah.
I think it's society. You should be perfect. And what is perfect? I discovered that my imperfection is someone else's perfection.
There you go. There is no such thing as perfect. We
There
can
is
strive for it if we want to, but we're not going to get there. And
oh,
I enjoy being far from perfect anyway.
I am sometimes so messy. I mess up things and
There is
luckily
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in being imperfect. I enjoy it. So for you, at what point did you decide that, or why did you decide to write your book?
I started writing my book in August 2020. And let me tell you why I finally decided to write my book. I met a friend online in November 2019, 19, and we tried to schedule an appointment for months. And finally, August 5th or 6th, 2020, we finally had a Zoom meet and greet. And she said, "Hey, tell me more about you. Who's Miriam?" And I told her my story. And Karen, I was so busy talking, so I wasn't paying attention to my screen. And when I finally looked at my screen, I saw that she had tears in her eyes. And I apologized. I said, "Oh no, it wasn't my intention to make you cry. Maybe I should write a book." And she said, "That's exactly what I wanted to suggest. And I'm more than happy to help you because I'm a writing coach." And I said, "Nah, I was just kidding. Me? Writing a book? Who would want to read my story?" She said, "Believe me, you can help others. Think about it." And 2 weeks later, August 22nd, I started writing my book. And in June 2021, 10 months later, I self published my book. And Karen, I'm so happy I did because I'm helping a lot of people, both caregivers and non caregivers. Writing my book helped me mentally because I cried a lot while I was writing my story. But I also laughed a lot while I was writing my story. So, my book, Caregiver 2.0 From Burnout to Powerhouse, is not only about my story. It's not about Miriam, just Miriam. It's about my transformational journey as a caregiver. But I also share the techniques I used. I also ask questions in my book, questions that might make you feel uncomfortable as a reader. But there was a time when I had to answer those questions myself. And it helped me asking myself those questions back then. So I'm really happy that I did something that I always dreamt of, writing a book, being an author. And my writing coach, she's a wonderful woman. And sometimes she said, just like you and I are talking right now, and then she said, hold on. You should write this. And no. I'm not gonna write it. I'm telling you the story right now, but no, don't go there. Don't even go there. She said, this needs to be in your book because this is exactly what caregivers are feeling. This is what they are experiencing right now. This is emotional, but this will help them. And that's how.
So did you find it? So it was a bit of a little bit like your journaling. It helped you. It was a bit of a healing process for you,
Yeah.
writing the book, and then the end result is all about helping others by sharing the truth. And do you think that you were resisting showing your vulnerability in the book? Is that what you were resisting against? Because
Yeah.
that can be quite difficult for some people, isn't it? To be that open and honest.
Yeah.
Because again, you've just said that there about, before you're concerned about what other people think. So actually now by doing the book and releasing all of that, that's I would have thought that's dealt with that side of things, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier for me to talk about my transformational journey as a caregiver. But what I see is that many caregivers are not there yet. They are not ready to share their story. And that's okay, because it took me quite a while. And even my best friend said, oh my gosh, when she read my book, she said, oh no, you're my best friend, but still there are some things that I didn't know. I feel like I should have supported you more. And I told her, no, it's okay. It's okay, because I didn't tell you. Because, there is shyness.
Well, none of us, it's a natural response, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
To want to keep certain certain feelings and certain things private. It's some of it is instinctive, right? And so we know that it will help, because at the end of the day, I don't know, through social media, not, we did this before social media, but, everybody wants to put their best face. I have a mask. We all have a mask that we wear. I'll go out and, I'm not going to hold my troubles. I'm going to show the world that everything's fine. Everything's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
When actually things may not actually be fine. So to even be that honest, to sort of put that out there, whereas actually for some people that might be what they need, because if they're feeling these feelings and looking at everyone else supposedly dealing with everything absolutely fine, that could make them feel worse and feel like a failure, because they don't feel like this image that everybody's projecting. So by reading something which is going to resonate with them, and I felt like that too, and it's okay. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay. And I was really concerned. I have a 5-minute video on my website. And in that video, I share my story with pictures of both my husband and my brother when they were in the hospital. And I asked my brother, are you sure you want to share this picture? I can share this. He said, yes, because this is reality. This is real. And I was blown away that he said, yes, please, please share it. Because the world needs to know that these things can happen. Caregiving can knock on your door like, hey, I'm here. Hello, it's me. We have to help you, especially now, Karen. Some of the caregivers are 14, 15 years old. That's young.
Yeah. They need to learn how to, they need the coping strategies, don't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is, and I do think things are turning around. I think we went through this, everybody's got to portray this perfect image. And I think the more and more people out there that are sharing and are being honest and open, and just being open to being vulnerable, right? And that it is okay. I do think things are changing, and it is, I would agree, it is definitely needed, because people need to understand that it's okay to be feeling like that, and there are things that can help you. So for you, what are the biggest mistakes that you made back then, and for any of the listeners, what they can do to avoid them?
First of all, I was a people pleaser. I mentioned that before. I said yes to many people. I had too much on my plate because I wanted to help everyone. So I was a people pleaser. I spent 95 of the time taking care of my loved one. And when I finally had 5% for Miriam, I felt guilty. So please don't be like me when it comes to those things. Everyone needs self-care. Everyone needs self-care. I didn't schedule. So all the appointments were on a sticky note on the fridge. Please don't start scheduling. Start with a 7-day calendar. Write it down, because when you write it down, you are more likely to do it. Schedule your self-care moments. Put an alarm in your telephone. Those are all things I didn't do. Those are all things I had to find out many things, and it took me years. You don't have to spend years to find it out. So those are the biggest mistakes I made, and not doing self-care, not socializing anymore. Very important. Socializing with friends, family, whether it's online, especially now during COVID, online or in person. Make sure you socialize and meet other people, because that will give you a chance to do something else than caregiving. So those were the biggest mistakes Miriam made.
Right. So great advice. You're right. We've got so much, with these, you can do anything on these phones. There's no reason why you can't, like you say, set alarms. Like, are you going to go for that walk today? Schedule it in. We're so bombarded with, we've got to schedule in when it's to do with work, but when we have balance in our lives, we've got to take into account the other things, the family, the relationships, your own health, not just business. And bit of self-care. So there's no reason why we can't. But again, going back to that whole, you just said it again, it's that feeling guilty about doing it. And I think that's what needs to be, the lid of that needs to be blown off, that there's no reason to feel any guilt for actually taking time out, because you're going to come back and you're going to be in a better position to help even more, right?
Yeah. And ask for help. I didn't ask for help. I didn't accept help when it was offered. How can I help you? No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. No, I wasn't fine. I wasn't fine. So ask for help. Yeah, many of us say, but I got no one to help me. I asked medical professionals for help. I asked my neighbors for help. Anyone in your community, church members, yoga members, ask anyone for help. What I did, my contacts in my phone, if someone was good at cooking, I would say, cooking, the name, and then cooking. And this one is, I can ask for groceries to help me to get my groceries, or this one can drive me to the hospital. So you know who you can ask for anything.
Right. And there's so much sort of, I don't know, again, where that comes from. Again, society, I suppose, we've been brought up to that, we're a failure for what we ask for help. And the truth is, actually, if somebody asked me for help, I would be more than willing to. It's almost like our natural instinct is actually to want to be able to help others. And as a caregiver, you know that, because that's what you do. And it's just interesting that the other way that, if somebody feels good about helping them, why wouldn't we ask them? It's I don't know where it comes from, and I would agree with you with what you say, that it's something to do with the society, something to do with how we've been brought up.
Yeah, and we're afraid to be rejected.
Yeah, there's that as well, I suppose. Yeah, one thing is rejection. One thing is maybe that makes, in some way, because we've asked for help, makes us feel like a failure, which is crazy. And we all need help. Show me one person that has got through life without help.
Nope. No. When I had my superhero cape on, that's how I call it, my superhero cape, I didn't want to take off my cape.
Ah,
I thought I could do it all by myself.
yeah.
And when I started crying and sobbing like a child, when the social worker asked me the question, I was mad because my superhero cape fell off.
Ah,
And they could see a vulnerable Miriam.
there we go again. Back to that being vulnerable.
Yep. Yeah. But it's okay to be vulnerable. It makes us authentic.
Yes. And we are human.
We are human. And why do we always want to be perfect? It's easy for me to say today because I learned the hard way. I burnt out. And I never want to experience this again. And it's very, very, very hard to see light at the end of the tunnel when you are in Burnout City. It's very hard. And that's why I tell fellow caregivers, make sure that you don't get there and take care of yourself. Otherwise, a caregiver will need a caregiver.
Mm. So what do you think, what was the biggest thing that really helped you beat burnout? How did you beat burnout back then?
Mindset change. And the idea, I was so afraid, Karen, that something bad would happen to me and that I wouldn't be able to take care of Martin. And not only that, but that we couldn't spend the life we could spend even though he was ill. Because I discovered that being ill doesn't have to hold you back from doing certain things to enjoy life. He will never be the same again, my husband. My brother will never be the same again. But there are enough possibilities to have a wonderful life within our situation. And that's what I tell fellow caregivers. My journey is not your journey, but there are possibilities to have a balanced life within your situation.
Balanced life. And how would you say you can live a balanced life? What's your best bit of advice to any of the listeners?
Make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure you see possibilities. Grab opportunities. Ask for help. Schedule and organize. Practice self-care. Socialize. It's not only one thing. It's a combination of these things.
Well, that's a great summary.
And I follow. The F stands for forgive yourself. The O for be open-minded. The first L for learn new things. Listen to your gut. Organize. And know your worth.
Wow.
Follow.
Very, very true. I mean, I think, with regards to people looking after family members, especially when it's, you didn't see it coming. So again, I think there's different types, isn't there? So we all know that at some point, due to age, our parents going to get to a certain age and they are going to need help, as we all know. Yeah. But I suppose the difference is when it comes suddenly out of nowhere, unexpected, an accident, or I mean, like with that, I'm sure when he first went to the doctors, he really wasn't expecting to have found out that his kidney's only working at 17%. So,
No.
you know, you weren't prepared for that. So do you think that in itself has a knock-on effect to how people deal with it? The difference between expecting something, so you might have had the previous 5 years of almost preparing it, knowing, seeing the changes in your parents, or so mentally almost preparing yourself for eventually having to step in and be a caregiver, versus something that's happened, boom, overnight, and you're not expecting it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you will never be 100% ready for something like this. That's something I have to be honest about. But when it knocks suddenly, unexpected on your door, you don't have time to prepare. So you have to jump in right away. You have to jump in right away. You don't have time. While you are caregiving, you have to learn about caregiving.
Mm.
That's the hard part. But you're working full time. You have to clean, cook. You're the groceries woman. You're the driver. When do you have time to learn
Mm.
about caregiving? So that's the hard part. When your parents are aging, you know, you keep it in your mind that maybe someday,
Yeah.
because not all of them need caregiving.
Mm.
You know that someday they might need your help. But you can prepare for maybe 80%. And the other 20% you will have to learn while you are caregiving.
Right.
You will have to find out because it's different per person. What does your loved one needs? That's something I had to discuss with my husband as well and my brother. What do you need from me and what can I do for you? What do you need? He needed a shower, my brother, and I could do it for him. So that's how I communicate with my loved ones. What do you need from me and what can I give you? What can you receive from me? But in order to help you, I need you to do this for me. It's a two-way.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. So it sounds like, you know, really for it to be, um, you know, if you're going to be thrown in at that, it doesn't have to be the real stressful, draining time, as long as you find balance.
Yeah.
Right. So for anybody listening who is struggling right now, you know, it doesn't have to be just like that, but you need to actually schedule in some time for yourself, for self-care. There does have to be, as long as there's a balance. Is that what you're saying, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's communication is so important, Karen, because we often think, oh, he thinks that. Maybe he thinks you can't think for someone else unless you ask them. Ask them, what are your thoughts? This is my idea. What are your thoughts? This works for me, but does it work for you? Let's see what we can do together. My
Right.
brother, his right arm isn't functioning since he had a stroke. But his left arm is functioning. So when I showered him in the hospital, he couldn't talk. I gave him his toothbrush. And he looked
Right.
at me because he couldn't talk and he put it backward in his mouth. So I started laughing. I said, what are you doing? But that's, he knew it belonged in his mouth, but he didn't know
Right.
what to do with it. And my other sister said, shouldn't you do it for him? I said, no, he can do it himself.
Yeah. because you would want to, right? You want, obviously, you and how lovely that he had you there, really. That he could have the support and help when he needed to. But yeah, we all want our own independence, and that's not going to change. So yeah, nothing wrong in if there's something that they can do, then yeah, encourage them to do it, and encourage them, especially something like a stroke where you know there are things that you can relearn. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's it, game over. You can retrain the brain.
Yeah. It's so important to try not to do it all for them, and that's what
So again, instead of you're not the savior, you don't have to be the savior, the hero. You're there to help where help is needed. But the overall theme from what I'm getting from you sharing your story, and thank you for that, Miriam, is the fact that, you know, there needs to be balance. There needs to be balance. So any caregivers out there, if you would like to get Miriam's book. So Miriam, how can people get hold of your book?
Via my website, miriamboldewijn.com. I have a page with my book and my 5-minute video. You can watch the video to learn more about my book. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere. All Amazon websites, Barnes and Nobles. It's everywhere. Local bookstores, maybe. So that's where you can find my book. Please read my book. If you know someone who will be a caregiver soon or is a caregiver right now, please provide them with the link and let them order the book.
Awesome. And so this is really about, you know, worrying about the kids because they don't get enough attention, do they? The caregiver does not. It's all about the person who is ill.
Yeah.
So this book is about you guys, if anybody's out there who is, because you are more important, actually, because if you're not right, you can't look after them. So it's ways to deal with that, and that you can. It doesn't have to be the total uphill struggle that I'm sure for many it may seem. So, but only you can change that, right?
Yeah, you're the only one.
Yeah.
And stop dreaming, stop wishing, but take action. Take baby steps, but radical action to change your life. And start where you are. Start where you are.
So they go back to the 5 minutes. If that's all you've got at the moment, because I'm sure the whole caregiving timing, I'm sure there's, you know, more to be needed in the beginning, and I'm sure things get easier and easier as it goes. And so even if you're at the position where you don't feel like there's any time, you know, everybody has 5 minutes. Just start with
Make
that.
time.
Make time, because that is important.
Yeah, it's so important. And the most important thing is you deserve it. You deserve time for yourself.
There you go. You said that right at the beginning about the, you know, it's almost the being worthy, right? You know, it's you're all worthy. Everybody is worthy.
It's worthy. And you know, this affirmation, excuse me, I am worthy of a wonderful life. This affirmation helped me so much after my burnout. Right. I told myself a couple of times a day, I am worthy of a wonderful life. And I believed it, because you can say it and not believe it, and it won't work. I believed it.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So you really have turned your pain into your purpose. That is exactly that is exactly what you've done. And so are you still a caregiver now, or have you progressed through?
I'm still a caregiver, not like before, because my brother can do many things himself right now. Thank God for that. And Martin can do many things himself, but they still need help with some medical issues.
So it all came round full circle, and so he had his transplant.
Yes, he
So he
had
had
2
the
surgeries.
transplant.
Yeah,
Wow.
the
So it's
kidney and
all gone good.
pancreas. Yeah,
Right.
it's all good. He had many eye surgeries. He had so many surgeries, we lost count. My husband then. And Patrick, after the stroke, it took a while for him to learn to walk and to talk again. But today, his right arm isn't functioning, but he can walk again.
Right.
So I'm really grateful. I turned my pain into my purpose. And after my book, I launched my 6-week online program where I help caregivers in their
Ah,
journey and teach them the techniques and tools I used to get out of
perfect. So
burnout.
you're a coach too. So if there's any caregivers out there that is struggling, yeah, get in touch with Miriam, get the book, maybe sign up to her 6-week program, because yeah, you need the help too. You need the help too, and it's essential if you can have
Yeah,
those tools to coping. To be able
yes,
to cope with it all and to live to continue living a very happy and productive life, right? It doesn't have to end there just because you're a caregiver for both of you, for all parties. Like you said, it's learning to, if something's happened, and it's about dealing with, okay, so maybe I can't do that, but I can do this, and
yes.
focusing your attention on maybe things are going to look different, but we can still enjoy stuff and do stuff together. So
And
um
it's so nice to have an accountability partner,
yeah.
someone you can talk to who's been through the same. I always say I don't provide medical help because I'm not a medical professional. But what I can help you with are those techniques and tools.
Techniques and tools to deal with it, some support, some guidance, a little bit of accountability.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for your time, Miriam. I'm glad that everything all turned out right. And this is a subject that I think a lot of people are going through right now. Things are changing. Things are changing, and more people are finding themselves in that role of caregiver, that weren't expecting it, that didn't choose it as a profession, that are probably juggling business, work, other family members to actually take on that role. And it's essential that they get their lives back on track and incorporate it in, but actually find help for themselves too. So thank you for all those insights. Thank you for the tips. If anybody wants to reach out, please reach out to Miriam, depending on whether you're listening to it on the radio, whether it's on the podcast, on YouTube. I will have all of Miriam's links down below. So once again, thank you for your time. And to the
Thank you.
listeners, I will be back next week with a coffee with Karen. So thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.